Hello and welcome. My name is Erik Anneker and I'm in sunny Stockholm today. I am the CEO and founder of Ecometrix. We're a data analytics firm focused on construction and AI. And I'm here with my dear friend and colleague,
Marcus Håkansson from BDO. BDO is a global accounting and advisory firm. I'm a partner at the advisory side working with ESG questions.
So today we are going to discuss why concrete matters in terms of usage and why that is important for the planet as a whole and what can we do about it. Just as context, concrete stands for about 7% of the global footprint, which is quite a lot, so we can't just ignore it, but concrete also is something we want to use and we have used for a long time. The big thing about concrete is what is usually called as a hard debate sector, so it's hard to change it. But we want to help and we want to work with that. So that's why we are here today, to see how we can sort of dive into what can be done in order to reduce this global footprint and actually achieve net zero. So the series is called Concrete Action Towards Net Zero. We know previously, we've been working with concrete for a couple of years now, and we started off in one project in Sweden called Betcrete, where all the companies in the whole value chain came together with a common goal. We want to reduce the carbon footprint. That work showed us that there are solutions, there are things happening, there are a lot of good initiatives, but at scale, it's not happening yet. We can see in some of the pilots that SBUF, a big study with the biggest construction companies, showed that you can actually reduce the carbon footprint of concrete when you're building things by up to 50%. So basically half of what you're doing today. So it's a lot. The big question we had was, why is not this happening at scale? We have the data, we can see that it's not happening at scale yet. So we brought together all players of the industry about 2 weeks ago. Gathering them, it was the financial side, so we had the private equity, we had the real estate companies, we had construction companies, we had the producers of concrete and even the suppliers of cement coming together in, I hope to say, or I dare to say, almost a unique setting where we spent half a day to discuss what can actually be done in order to move the needle towards net zero. And apart from those companies, you were there.
I was there, and I must say I was impressed. I did not expect that kind of involvement and engagement in the discussions. Your workshop sessions were quite long, so you could extract quite a lot of information, I understand. I have seen the results from that. It was not something that I have seen in a long time, because those kind of discussions are usually just for the cause of it and only to produce some yellow notes. But in this case, the information was actually collected and used, and you have wonderful results.
That we do, and we're going to jump into that in just a few seconds. But I just want to emphasize that one thing that I really took away from those discussions was that everybody, all the way through the value chain, has an ambition. They want to move towards net zero. That's not the issue here. But we'll jump into that right away.
Sitting in these discussions, I could see that there was not really any fragmentation. That didn't surprise me, because everyone needs to do this. We are at a time in Europe, in the world, where omnibus made everyone believe that sustainability and maybe climate is not so important anymore. That's a misconception. This is very important, and strategically they are looking for ways to lower their footprint. So they were agreeing, but then I guess you have seen also afterwards that each group, because there were many different groups there, had its own pain or not, I think.
Yeah. And we discussed this earlier, Marcus, and one of the things that obviously you noted was this financial thing, right?
Mhm.
The cost,
Price.
the price. Some of the things were common, and some of the things were a little bit more kind of depending on the perspective. But one that was just all through the whole discussion was this thing about understanding knowledge and sharing of that knowledge. And I guess that's something that you discussed a lot as well.
Yes, I think I learned a lot, but I think also in one way, at one point of the discussion, I think I knew as much about this as the other ones. And I'm a financial advisor, so I shouldn't. But this is a new topic for everyone. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously we already touched upon that. The second topic that was a barrier is that everyone thinks that it's more expensive. It will take us longer. We'll lose revenue because the construction will not be made in time if we use low carbon solutions. And you had some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, my takes from the session was generally that I was thinking about the quality triangle, where price, timing, and expectations from the client, because there is always a relationship to the client, is what is really is summing the problems up here. And what I learned was that concrete today is ordered for a construction project based on price and timing, and then the quality is always super. And I learned, a funny thing was that the concrete used for ordinary construction projects is better than the one that we use in the nuclear plants. So I mean, obviously that is not necessary. That is too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that also comes down to another perspective of that, which is sort of the flip side of the cost, is risk. So the risk sharing and who owns the risk was also something that was discussed as one of the barriers, because it's a little bit unclear. And risk is something everyone wants to avoid, right? You know that. That's what you work with.
I know that, and my perception of risk, we discussed this now, the autumn of 2025, mm-hmm. and this is what is applying right now. But what will apply in 2027? Who will lose this greyhound race towards the more cost-effective and more sustainable, in the same time, construction projects? Where the only thing that it takes in these situations is that somebody starts and leaving the others, beating them to the goal.
True. And that's also another, which might at first sight look a little bit weird, because one of the barriers, they said, is we're not collaborating enough. So it's a competitive world where everyone wants to win, be profitable, and at the same time, what they're talking a lot about is collaboration. We need to collaborate more. All the different players in the value chain needs to collaborate. And one thing that came up is a lack of understanding of business models, because they have different business models, correct?
That's correct. And also that what has been obvious the last years is that the business model is in the middle of everything, but there's also the value chain. Mm-hmm. And it is in the value chain that value is created by collaborating. Mm-hmm. Mm.
So that's another topic this is going to be so much fun to dive even deeper into. Some of the other things that came up were discussions around standards and policy. Obviously, that's always going to be important. But also sort of this national leadership and organizational issues. And they're not talking about organizational issues necessarily only within their organizations themselves, but on a broader level. So one of the things is, in Sweden at least, the organizations that are driving some of these questions, like Svensk Betong, Svensk Materialindustri, they're quite small. And they don't really have the muscles to do some of these things that needs to happen for collaboration, risk sharing, and all those things. They're working very hard with things like standards and policies, for instance. So they are addressing some of these things. But yeah, the national leadership, I think, is an question that needs to be addressed, and we're actually going to explore some of that as well.
And I think that's typical for this industry. Many small actors working towards a big one.
Yeah. So in conclusion, we found basically 7 different barriers towards the change to reach net zero at scale, moving beyond the pilots, moving beyond the demonstration projects. So what we're going to do now together, we're going to invite people and we're going to discuss some of these things. One thing that really is interesting in this context in terms of the barriers is the second group exercise we had when we met all of these people was asking them to address what needs to be done now and what's most important to do right now. And looking at what we could see there is everyone thinks that the first point we talked about, knowledge, transfer, understanding, all those things is super important. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this, right, Marcus?
It is, and it was obvious for me before it was even outspoken in the session that you arranged, that knowledge was very low, and that knowledge is not passed between the parties either. So this needs to be done, and I think that the white paper that you are producing is, I will read it, and I recommend everyone to read it that is affected by this, because that's a brilliant investigation of the current situation here.
Yeah, I agree. And just for context, this group that we drove together, just to emphasize that point, was actually initiated by us, Ecometrix, but also NCC, a construction company in Sweden, RISE, which is a state-owned research agency, as well as Slättö, which is a private equity construction real estate company. So just seeing how important this is it really strikes us. And moving on there, basically when we look at what needs to address, there are some big differences here. And I think that is about perspective. So looking at what the real estate companies and also the financial people think when they say what needs to be addressed are things like cost, timings, risk sharing, and clear targets. So is that common when you look across industries, that sort of where the financial people are, that's what they're looking at, or is this?
It's a common argument in these discussions, but then it has been proven in many industries that value is created in sustainable companies. And that is because of the fact, you mentioned risk just now, and to avoid risk is of course what builds value, and also taking care of opportunities, but the way I see it, missing an opportunity is a risk. So I work with risks. And what you can put timing and price in one bowl, and then expectations in the other. The expectations now is traditional, you could say. But what lures around the bend is that, you know, that the Swedish government is being criticized by the EU for not reaching their climate goals. What happens when they are pushing the industry? What happens when they place the demands? You have to be ready. And these are the things that I work with. You have to be ready when the law is launched. You have to be ready when the EU directive is launched. You cannot start to be ready then. Then you will lose a lot of time and a lot of projects. So to adapt before the legislation changes is what this is about. And one of the other things I took from this and the discussions, and also when we've been talking afterwards, is also this, we say perceived cost, because there's quite a few cases showing that it's actually not more expensive, or it doesn't necessarily have to take longer, you just have to think differently. And that's another thing that we're going to sort of delve into more further down the line. The other thing that was sort of producers of concrete and cement, they're addressing totally different things like standards and policies, because they say it's not fast enough for the change that needs to happen. The other thing that I thought was interesting, though, what they're saying is a lot of the sort of green concrete that's on the market today and also being looked at is built on some old technologies and actually rest products from the steel furnaces called GGBS, and the fly ash, which comes from coal power plants. And those things will be phasing out.
So they're addressing is sort of, this is all well and good, but we might have a material deficit.
No matter what.
No matter what. And so new technologies and new materials need to be looked at. That's their perspective, looking at the construction companies, the real estate, they don't even know this. So again, knowledge. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is I heard about, they talked about this risk and sharing. One company, a big construction company, said that they had a client who said, we're going to share the risk and we're actually going to incentivize you to make it greener and faster. And lo and behold, what happens? Greener and faster.
Yeah.
So I think there are some structures here that needs to be addressed, and it's going to be really interesting to invite guests over to see what will come out of that.
Yeah, and what I understood from this session was that the concept is proven, no?
Yeah.
And we are at this phase now where the concept is proven, and in some way it's going to be increasing and scaled up. So don't miss that train.
Again, yeah, I totally agree, and I think the whole industry. And I think everyone agreed in the room as well that the industry as a whole needs to rethink some of the ways they've been working in order to reach the net zero, but also to address some of these things, and might even make them more profitable, more competitive.
That's true, and there are different incentives involved here. There's even down to the personal level incentives that nobody in the room was disagreeing, which can be the case in some of these discussions, not concerning concrete, but other sustainability discussions. But in here, everyone was agreeing. Still, there are other incentives. And, I mean, doing what you have always done, etc., stuck in old tracks, and being comfortable as a company, as a personal as an engineer or worker or whatever it might be. So we need to change that, and of course, to change those patterns, what you have always done is of course a challenge.
It is, and another challenge I think for this whole topic as such is everything is project related, right? So some of these things are very fundamental. You can't just do it in a project, you have to do it for all of your projects. Sounds like there's a lot that needs to be done. So the question that begs to be answered, right, is it even possible?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always a question, and it's always the question that the skeptics are asking in a how do you say, rhetorical way. You say a rhetorical question. But it is possible, because we have seen it in other industries. We can just go to logistics. To see how they have been changing for small vehicles, like in the taxi industry, delivery, medium vehicles in city delivery systems. And now they are actually changing in larger vehicles, and it's happening now, which they have been claiming for a long time was not possible. So, but it's happening. So of course, it can happen in this industry as well, and it will happen in all industries, because all industries will suffer from lack of resources. They need to change for the circular models, and also a footprint, a climate footprint that is too large. So everyone will need to address this, because the stakeholders of the company, that specific company, will be loud, and they will demand this. So I think also the difference between the narrative and the actual data is always interesting. How somebody claims something, this is not possible. But what I learned from the seminar, from this session, was that there are already projects showing this. And this, I'm thinking about the student home in Uppsala, a lot of apartments, I don't know, 600, where it was cheaper. The climate footprint was lower, and it was delivered on time, but because of due to the collaboration. So
yeah. True. And it's kind of interesting that you're saying sort of the big stakeholders. I was at an event, the India-Sweden Innovation Day, a couple of weeks ago, sitting on a panel talking about AI, and Volvo was there talking about EV vehicles, and they're pouring in billions of US dollars into this transition. So yeah, it is happening and it needs to happen. We have a planet, there's no planet B. So
that's true, and I would like to connect to what we said earlier here, that this is a greyhound race, and of course the transport industry has reached further, but Volvo wants to win this race. As simple as that.
Yeah.
You know?
So there is this collaboration thing that we've been talking about a lot, sharing risk, responsibility, and we're doing this collaboration. Ecometrix and BDO,
I'm happy.
right? Yeah,
I'm
me
happy.
too, right?
Yeah.
This is what it's all about, collaboration. So we're going to be inviting a lot of other companies and stakeholders into the discussion because we really want to understand this. We at Ecometrix, we work with data and AI and think that will be one of the catalysts of change. Like you said, narrative is one thing, data is something different. And BDO.
Yes, and for me what is worth in this collaboration between us is of course that our clients can come to you and get help.
Yeah.
This is my role. I'm the spider in the web. I'm the consultant that helps them with everything. I'm supposed to know people that can do things, and you can do this for our construction clients and also for our real estate clients, as an example.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, BDO, one of the things that we've discussed earlier, which I think is really interesting, is this thing about managing risk. And the climate and sustainability is a big risk that needs to be managed.
True, very true.
As we said, this is going to be fun. Looking forward to inviting guests. We'll be having guests from the real estate sector. We'll have money represented, private equity and banks. We'll have the contractors and the entrepreneurs here, the construction companies. We'll also have producers of cement and concrete here, and maybe some other surprise guests. Who knows?
Yeah, so basically all the groups that were represented in the first session, but then we go deeper.
Exactly. We want to dive into, we want to understand what can be done now. And we want to be as concrete, pun intended, as possible. So we want to move beyond the demonstration projects. But one of the things is that some of you, especially some listeners and watchers in Sweden, is asking, why do we do this in English?
Yeah, and why is that?
Well, for me at least, Ecometrix, the way we see it is Sweden is a small country, but we are at the forefront. We're driving sustainability and the change of doing business in a sustainable way. But this is a global problem. This is something that not only will be solved in Sweden. So we want to share, as we said at the outset, knowledge sharing is an important aspect of this. So we want to share, spread the word, and get the good examples out there. And we are encouraging people internationally to contact us as well. If there are any things that you want us to address from a Swedish perspective, or if you want to even partake in this.
And I know that from our conversations and collaboration, you do have international collaborations already.
We do. So just as an example, we're working with India, and India is they're producing concrete 3 times the volume of Europe. So just to give things in context. So things we do here in Sweden can really have a global impact. And BDO is a global company.
BDO is a global company, and what drives me every day is of course, I'm a consultant. I work for the hours, but it's also nice to go home in the evening knowing that you have made a little bit of a difference in the world, in Sweden, but also the global perspective.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I'm an analyst. I could be working with AI and data in whatever setting I wanted, but this is where I want to make a difference. This is important, and I think there is opportunity to really bend the curve.
It's the future.
Okay, Marcus, so we know change is possible. We are now moving beyond that. We are moving towards the next couple of episodes that we're going to be working with where we're going to show how, and hopefully get some help from the industry as to how to actually make this change happen at scale.
Yes, I always tell my clients that the only thing we know is that change is a fact. But thank you for letting us be a part, letting BDO be a part of your project, and we are looking forward to this.
And thank you for being with us. I mean, I think this is so important, that collaboration as we've talked about, but also different perspectives. And we have different perspectives, but a common goal.
For certain.
Yeah. So stay tuned for our next episodes, where we hopefully will give you some good examples and good action that you can work with in a concrete way.